Vethal had watched many worlds from the darkness of space. His people, the Cillians, were known across the galaxy as observers. They studied, they recorded, they judged. In 800 years of service, Vethal had documented 847 species. He had seen warriors and cowards, builders and destroyers, creatures of light and beings of shadow. None of them had ever made him feel anything other than cold curiosity. The Cillians did not feel fear. This was not pride speaking. It was simply fact. Their minds worked like machines, processing information without the interference of emotion. Fear was for lesser species, for creatures who had not evolved beyond their primitive instincts. Vethal had walked among predators that could tear him apart with a single claw. He had stood before hive minds that consumed entire worlds. He had looked into the eyes of species that existed only to kill. He had felt nothing. Now his ship floated above, a small blue world called Earth. And Vethal prepared for what should have been a routine observation. The Galactic Council wanted to know if these humans were worth contacting. His job was simple. Go down, study them, write a report, leave. The data on his screen told him everything he needed to know. Humans lived for approximately 80 cycles. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural armor. They could not survive in vacuum. They could not breathe underwater. They needed to eat and sleep with annoying frequency. Their bodies were soft and broke easily. By every measure, they were unremarkable. Vethal clicked his mandibles in what might have been boredom. Another weak species on another small world. He would be done within a few rotations. The shuttle descended through white clouds and blue sky. Vethal watched the land grow larger beneath him. The humans had chosen a city called Sol for first contact. His research indicated was a place of some importance to them. The shuttle landed on a flat, gray surface surrounded by strange metal buildings. Vethal stepped out and felt the planet's air fill his breathing tubes. It was thick and wet and smelled of things he could not identify. Unpleasant, but survivable. A group of humans waited for him. They stood in neat lines wearing matching dark clothes. Vethal had seen this before. Every species liked to present themselves formally during first contact. It was predictable. One human stepped forward. He was tall for his species, with gray hair near his ears and eyes that looked older than his face. He bowed slightly and spoke words that Vethal's translator turned into meaning. Welcome to Earth. I am Ambassador Yoon Do-Yun. We are honored by your visit. Vethal studied the ambassador. The human's voice was calm and his body was still. This suggested either great discipline or great practice at hiding his true feelings. Vethal noted this but thought little of it. I am Observer Vethal of the Cillian Collective. I am here to assess your species for the Galactic Council. We understand, the ambassador said. We will help you however we can. Another human stood beside the ambassador. This one was smaller, a female, with black hair pulled back tight against her head. She wore different clothes than the others, darker, more practical. Her hands hung at her sides, but her fingers were slightly curved, ready to move. This is Colonel Park Ji-won, the ambassador said. She will ensure your safety during your stay. Vethal looked at the colonel. She looked back. Her eyes did not move away or show submission. They simply watched him the same way Vethal watched new species. I do not require protection, Vethal said. The Cillians have never been harmed during observation missions. Of course, the colonel said. Her voice was flat, giving nothing away. Consider it courtesy. They began walking toward the buildings. Humans lined the path, watching with wide eyes and open mouths. Vethal had seen this reaction before. Lesser species were always amazed by visitors from the stars. It would pass. The welcome ceremony took place in a large room filled with more humans. They made speeches and played music and offered food that Bethel could not eat. He stood still and observed everything. That was when he noticed something strange. One of the humans, in uniform, held a long weapon, a ceremonial tool of some kind. During a particularly loud piece of music, the human's grip slipped. The weapon fell. What happened next took less than a heartbeat. Colonel Park's hand moved towards something hidden at her side. Her eyes swept across the room, checking every corner, every face, every possible threat. Her body shifted, placing itself between the falling weapon and the ambassador. Her weight moved to the front of her feet, ready to push forward or leap aside. Then she saw there was no danger. The weapon hit the ground with a loud clatter. The clumsy human bent to pick it up. The colonel's hand moved away from her side. Her body relaxed. Her eyes returned to their normal watchfulness. Bethel calculated the time. 0.3 of a second. In 0.3 of a second, this human had assessed a threat, prepared a response, identified false danger, and returned to normal function. He had never seen any species react so fast to a non-threat. Bethel looked around the room with new attention. Now he saw what he had missed before. Every human in the room was watching. Not just him. They watched each other, the doors, the windows, the shadows in the corners. They smiled and talked and laughed, but beneath all of that, they were alert. These creatures lived in a constant state of threat assessment. They expected danger at every moment. They prepared for attack even during celebrations of peace. Bethel had studied predators across the galaxy. He knew what hunters looked like. He was standing in a room full of them. For the first time in 800 years. Bethel made a note that troubled him. These humans appear to exist in a constant state of readiness for violence. This requires further study. He looked at Ambassador Yoon, who smiled warmly and offered him more food he could not eat. The smile was genuine. The warmth was real, but behind those kind old eyes, something was watching Bethel right back, and it was not afraid of him at all. The next day, the humans took Bethel to learn about their history. A young female named Lee Soman was given the task of explaining her species to him. She had a round face and quick eyes and spoke with the careful patience of someone used to teaching difficult students. They walked through a building filled with old objects and pictures. The humans called it a museum. Bethel had seen such places before. Every species kept records of their past. It was how they remembered who they were. This section shows the Three Kingdoms period, Selman said. Over 1,500 years ago, three nations fought for control of this land. Bethel looked at the old weapons behind glass. Swords, spears, armor made of metal plates. Primitive but effective. Your people fought each other, he said. It was not a question. Yes, for hundreds of years. They moved to another section. More weapons. Different shapes. Different purposes. This is from the Japanese invasions, Soman explained. Foreign enemies attacked our land. Many died. Bethel calculated the numbers she gave him. Hundreds of thousands dead. Cities burned. Families destroyed. And after this, there was peace? Soman's face changed slightly. The expression was one Bethel had not learned to read yet. No, there was more war. They walked further. The weapons became more advanced. The numbers of dead grew larger. This is the Korean War, Soman said. Her voice remained steady, but something underneath it had changed. It happened less than 100 years ago. My great-grandmother survived it. She showed him pictures. Burning cities. Frozen soldiers. Children with empty eyes walking through destroyed streets. 3 million dead in 3 years, she said. North and south. Families were divided. Brothers killed brothers. The border they created still exists today. Bethel stood very still. He had seen war before. All species fought. The Kalori had exterminated 17 worlds before they were stopped. The Varax had crusaded across an entire arm of the galaxy in the name of their gods. War was normal, but this was different. You fought your own species, he said slowly. You fought yourselves. For your entire history. Yes, Ambassador Yoon said. He had been walking quietly beside them. We always have. We fight over land and resources and ideas and beliefs. We fight because we are afraid. We fight because we are angry. Sometimes we fight because we have forgotten how to do anything else. And you did not destroy yourselves. Not yet, the ambassador said. There was no humor in his voice. They entered a new room. This one was darker, colder. The pictures on the walls showed something Bethel did not immediately understand. A bright light. A mushroom-shaped cloud. A city that existed one moment and was gone the next. Hiroshima, someone said. August 6, 1945. We built a weapon that used the power of atoms themselves. We dropped it on a city of civilians. 80,000 died in seconds. Tens of thousands more died slowly from the poison it left behind. Bethel felt his thorax tighten. His people had studied atomic weapons. They were simple in theory, but devastating in practice. Most species developed them eventually. 3 days later, we dropped another one, Soman continued, on a city called Nagasaki. Then we built more. Many more. The pictures showed rows of metal cylinders. Bombs that could destroy entire regions. Missiles that could cross oceans in minutes. Submarines hiding under dark water, carrying enough death to end civilizations. At the height of what we called the Cold War, Ambassador Yoon said, humans possessed over 60,000 nuclear weapons. Enough to destroy our world several times over. Bethel ran the calculations. 60,000 weapons. One small planet. The mathematics of extinction. You built these weapons to fight each other, he said. Your own species. Yes, before you achieved spaceflight. Long before. We split the atom in 1945. We did not reach our moon until 1969. We had the power to end ourselves before we had the ability to leave. Vetho's mandibles clicked rapidly. This was not normal. This was not how species developed. Technology for war should not outpace technology for survival. It violated every pattern he had observed in 800 years. Why did you not use them? Why are you still here? Colonel Park answered. She had been silent throughout the tour, watching everything, saying nothing. Now she spoke. Because we knew what would happen if we did. We called it mutually assured destruction. If one side attacked, the other would attack back. Everyone would die. No winners. No survivors. Just ashes. So you did not fight because fighting meant death for all. Yes, Bethel thought about this. The humans had not found peace through wisdom or enlightenment. They had not evolved beyond violence. They had simply realized that violence at full scale meant extinction. They had survived by balancing on the edge of a blade. One wrong step and everything would end. Yet they had walked that blade for decades without falling. Take me to the border, Bethel said. The one from your war. I want to see it. They drove for hours through green hills and small towns. Eventually they reached a place where the land was split by fences and walls and men with guns. On one side, soldiers in dark uniforms stood watching. On the other side, soldiers in different uniforms stood watching back. Between them, a strip of empty earth where nothing lived and no one walked. The demilitarized zone, Selman said. The most heavily armed border on our planet. 2 nations staring at each other for 70 years. Ready to fight. Choosing not to. Bethel watched the soldiers. They did not move. They did not speak. They simply waited. Guns ready. Eyes forward. Why do they not attack? He asked. Because they might, Colonel Park said. And if they do, millions will die. So they wait. They watch. They prepare. But they do not move. Vethel understood then. The humans were not peaceful. They had never been peaceful. They were simply holding themselves back, every moment of every day. Through pure force of will and fear of consequences, they were a species at war with itself, fighting constantly to not fight, and somehow, impossibly, they were winning. He made a new note. Humans do not avoid conflict through peace. They avoid it through the promise of mutual destruction. This is not restraint. This is controlled terror. The soldiers kept watching. The border stayed silent. And somewhere in the distance, Vethel heard children laughing, playing games in a village built in the shadow of apocalypse. These humans were insane, and he was beginning to think that might be their greatest strength. The attack came on the 5th day. Vethel was in a coastal city called Bizon when the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed in every building. People stopped walking and looked up at the sky. But they did not run. They did not panic. They simply waited, watching, like predators who had heard a branch snap in the darkness. What is happening? Vethel asked. Colonel Park was already speaking into a small device on her wrist. Her face showed no fear. Her voice stayed level and cold. 3 ships just appeared in orbit. Kreth raiders. They're sending landing parties. Vethel felt his thorax clench. He knew the Kreth. Everyone knew the Kreth. They were pirates and slavers who had terrorized the Outer Rim for centuries. They attacked weak worlds, took what they wanted, and left nothing but bodies behind. We need to leave, Vethel said. My ship can take us to safety. The council vessel is waiting beyond your moon. Your ship has already left, Park said. Standard council protocol. They won't return until the threat is gone. Then we need to negotiate. The Kreth will accept tribute. They always do. Offer them resources, technology, anything. Just do not fight them. Ambassador Yoon appeared beside them. He was speaking calmly into his own device, giving orders that Vethel's translator struggled to follow. Military codes. Deployment commands. Weapons authorization. We don't pay tribute, the ambassador said. You don't understand. Vethel's voice rose higher than he intended. The Kreth have conquered 40 systems. They have better weapons, better armor, better ships. Your technology is primitive. You cannot fight them. Colonel Park stopped talking into her device and looked at Vethel. Her eyes were steady and hard. We're not preparing to fight, she said. We're preparing to win. The next hours moved too fast for Vethel to follow. Humans rushed around him with purpose and precision. Soldiers appeared from everywhere, armed with weapons he had never seen in his research. Vehicles rolled through streets that emptied of civilians within minutes. Aircraft screamed overhead, moving toward positions only the military understood. Vethel was taken to an underground room, filled with screens and shouting humans. A large man with broad shoulders and a voice like grinding stones stood at the center, commanding everything. General Choi Taiyang, Park said. He's in charge now. On the screens, Vethel watched the Kreth landing party descend. 50 warriors in powered armor, carrying plasma rifles and vibration blades. Each one was twice the size of a human. Each one had killed dozens of lesser species. They landed outside the city, their ships burning the ground black where they touched. The Kreth commander walked forward. He was massive, even for his kind, with tusks filed to sharp points and armor decorated with the bones of his victims. Primitive creatures. The commander's voice boomed through speakers the humans had set up. Surrender now. Give us your resources and your strongest for slaves. Resist and we will burn your world. Vethel waited for the humans to respond with offers of peace. with negotiations, with the reasonable submission that every intelligent species chose when faced with superior force. Instead, a single human walked out to meet the Kreth. He was young, with short black hair and a face that looked almost bored. He wore simple clothes with no armor. He carried no weapons. In one hand, he held a white flag. "Sergeant Han Min-jae," Park said quietly. "Volunteer." The Kreth commander laughed. The sound was like rocks breaking. "One small creature? This is your army? Kneel before me, insect, and perhaps I will make your death quick." Sergeant Han did not kneel. He smiled. "You have 30 seconds to surrender," he said. The Kreth commander stopped laughing. His hand moved toward his weapon. He never touched it. The shot came from somewhere Vettel could not see. One moment the commander had a head. The next moment he did not. His body stood for a heartbeat, confused, then fell forward into the dirt. "Corporal Bayuna," Park said. 3 kilometers away. She never misses. The other Kreth froze for half a second. That was too long. Humans appeared from everywhere. From buildings. From holes in the ground. From vehicles that had seemed empty. They came with weapons blazing, with knives flashing, with the terrible precision of creatures who had been practicing violence for 10,000 years. Vettel watched on the screens as the battle unfolded. 47 seconds. That was all it took. 50 Kreth warriors in advanced armor against humans with inferior technology. The humans won. They did not just win. They destroyed. They took apart the Kreth landing party with the efficiency of surgeons and the fury of storms. They worked together without speaking, communicating through hand signals and quick looks. When one human fell, another took their place. When a Kreth weapon destroyed a position, the humans were already somewhere else. And through it all, they never stopped moving forward. "The ships," Vettel said. "The Kreth still have ships in orbit. They will bomb your cities." General Choi smiled. It was not a kind expression. "No," he said. "They won't." On another screen, Vettel watched missiles rise from hidden locations across the human continent. Surface-to-orbit weapons. The humans had built them, hidden them, and waited. Just in case, 2 Kreth ships exploded in bright flowers of fire. The third tried to run. "They're escaping," Vettel said. "No," the general said again. "They're not." A new weapon launched. Smaller than the missiles. Faster. It caught the fleeing ship before it could enter hyperspace. The explosion was visible from the ground, a brief new star in the afternoon sky. "What was that?" Vettel asked. "A gift," General Choi said. "For anyone who thinks we're easy prey." The room was quiet for a moment. Then the humans started working again, checking reports, counting casualties, already preparing for the next threat that might never come. Sergeant Han walked back into the command center. He had blood on his face that was not his own. He nodded at the general, grabbed a cup of water, and sat down like he had just finished a morning exercise. Vettel stared at him. At all of them. These soft creatures with no claws or fangs. These fragile beings who lived for only 80 years. These primitive people who should have been slaves. They had just destroyed an elite Kreth raiding force in less than a minute. "How?" Vettel asked. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "You are weak. Your technology is inferior. How did you do this?" Colonel Park handed him a cup of something hot. Tea, they called it. "We've been preparing for war since before we could write," she said. The Kreth thought they were attacking primitives. They were wrong. Vettel looked at the steam rising from his cup. His hands were shaking. Cillians did not shake. Cillians did not feel fear, but standing in that room, surrounded by calm humans who had just committed efficient slaughter, Bethal realized something terrible. He was afraid. For the first time in 800 years, he was truly afraid, and the humans just kept drinking their tea. The command center had grown quiet. Most of the soldiers had left, returning to positions across the country. Only a few remained, filling out reports and cleaning weapons and doing the small ordinary tasks that followed extraordinary violence. Bethal sat in a corner with his cup of tea growing cold in his hands. He had not moved for 2 hours. His mind kept running the same calculations over and over, trying to understand what he had witnessed. The mathematics did not work. The Kreth had superior technology, superior armor, superior numbers. Every model Bethel knew said the humans should have lost, should have died, should have become another conquered world in the Kreth Empire. But they had won, quickly, decisively, without mercy. "You look troubled," Ambassador Yoon said, sitting down across from him. The old man looked tired but calm, like someone who had seen many difficult days and expected to see many more. "I am trying to understand," Bethel said. "My people have studied war across the galaxy. We have documented every major conflict for 10,000 years. I have personally observed 312 species in combat situations, and nothing I have seen prepared me for this." Colonel Park appeared with a fresh cup of tea for the ambassador. She sat down beside him, her movements still controlled, still ready. Bethel wondered if she ever truly relaxed. "What confuses you most?" she asked. "You should be traumatized," Bethel said. "You just experienced first contact warfare. Alien beings attacked your world. Your species faced extinction for the first time. By every psychological model I know, your people should be in shock, panic, chaos." Park glanced at the ambassador. Something passed between them that Bethel could not read. "We've faced extinction before," she said simply. "We're still here. But how? How do you do it? How do you remain so calm?" Ambassador Yoon leaned forward. When he spoke, his voice was soft and serious. "Let me ask you something, observer. When you study a species, what do you look for first?" Bethel considered the question. "Threat assessment. We examine their weapons, their military structure, their history of conflict. We determine if they are dangerous." "And what did you determine about us before you landed?" "That you were not dangerous. Your technology was primitive. Your bodies were weak. You had no natural weapons. By every measure, you were a species waiting to be conquered. You were wrong." "Yes, I understand that now. But I do not understand why." A new voice joined them. "Because you measured the wrong things." Bethel turned to see a small human female approaching. She wore a white coat and carried a device that projected images into the air. Her face was round with thick glasses that made her eyes look larger than they were. "This is Dr. Kang Yoonji," the ambassador said. "She designed the weapons that destroyed the Kreth fleet." Dr. Kang sat down and began projecting images, charts, graphs, timelines. "You measured our technology and found it inferior," she said. "That's true. The Kreth have better weapons than we do. Better ships, better armor. But technology is not what makes a species dangerous. Then what does?" "Well," she pointed at a timeline that showed human history stretching back thousands of years. "Look at this. Stone tools to bronze to iron to gunpowder to nuclear weapons. This progression took most species 100,000 years. We did it in 10,000. Some of it in less than 100. Bethal studied the timeline. The acceleration was impossible. Species did not evolve this quickly. "We don't innovate despite our violence," Dr. Kang continued. "We innovate because of it. Every war teaches us something. Every conflict makes us more efficient. Every enemy we face becomes a lesson we learn and remember." "But why?" What drives you? Fear. Colonel Park said the word simply, like she was stating an obvious fact. We are afraid all the time. Of each other. Of the universe. Of death. We are terrified constantly, and that terror makes us dangerous. Fearful species run, Bethel said. They hide. They submit. That is the normal response to fear. Normal for other species, the ambassador said. Not for us. When humans are afraid, we don't run. We prepare. We build walls. We sharpen weapons. We train our children to fight. Fear doesn't make us weak. It makes us relentless. Dr. Kang projected a new image. Human brain scans showing active regions during different emotional states. Our brains evolved under constant threat, she explained. Predators, weather, disease, other humans. We were never safe. Never could relax. So we developed a response to fear that turns it into action, into aggression, into the drive to eliminate whatever threatens us. Bethel thought about this. On his world, his people had removed fear through genetic modification thousands of years ago. They considered it a weakness, an obstacle to logical thought. But the humans had kept their fear. They had used it. You are telling me that your greatest weakness is actually your greatest strength. Yes. That the same terror that should make you helpless makes you deadly. Yes. That you have been afraid for your entire existence. And that fear is why you are still alive. Yes. Ambassador Yoon's voice was gentle. We are survivors, observer. We survive by being afraid enough to prepare for everything. And we survive by being angry enough to fight when preparation fails. Bethel set down his cold tea. His hands had stopped shaking, but something inside him had changed. He had come to this world thinking he would study a primitive species. Instead, he had discovered something new, something unprecedented. The Kreth thought you were prey, he said slowly. They thought your fear made you weak. They were wrong. They were very wrong, Colonel Park agreed. And if other species make the same mistake? No one answered. But Vethelez saw the look that passed between the humans. He understood what it meant. They were ready. They had been ready for 1,000 years. They would be ready for 1,000 more, because they were afraid. And fear had made them into something the galaxy had never seen before. Bethel stood up. He needed to write his report. He needed to tell the council what he had learned. But as he walked toward his temporary quarters, he paused and looked back at the humans. They were drinking tea and filling out paperwork and talking quietly about ordinary things. Like they had not just destroyed an alien invasion. Like violence was so normal, they could set it aside and return to daily life in moments. He had studied 847 species. None of them had ever scared him. Until now. 3 months later, Bethel stood before the Galactic Council. The great chamber stretched out around him, filled with representatives from 200 species. Some floated in liquid tanks. Some crouched on heated rocks. Some existed as patterns of light that flickered between solid forms. Each one had come to hear his assessment of the new species called humans. The council speaker, a massive creature with crystalline skin and a voice like wind through caves, called the session to order. Observer Bethel of the Silian Collective. You have completed your assessment of Earth and its dominant species. The council awaits your classification. Bethel had prepared for this moment. He had written hundreds of reports before. The format was always the same. Category the species. Assess the threat level. Recommend contact or avoidance. Simple. But as he stood before the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, Bethel found that his prepared words had disappeared. Humanity, he began, then stopped. He started again. Humanity cannot be categorized. Sounds of confusion rippled through the chamber. The Silians were known for their precise classifications. They always had an answer. "Explain," the speaker commanded. "I have observed 847 species in my career. I have documented predators and prey, warriors and pacifists, hive minds and individualists. Each one fit into our existing categories. Each one could be understood through the frameworks we have developed over millennia." Vethal pressed a control on his device. Images appeared in the air above him. Human history, human weapons, human wars. Humans fit none of our categories. They are simultaneously primitive and advanced, peaceful and violent, logical and emotional. They possess inferior technology but superior tactics. They have weak bodies but unbreakable spirits. They fear everything and surrender to nothing. He showed them the timeline of human development, the acceleration that defied all models, the nuclear weapons that preceded spaceflight, the border where two nations had faced each other for 70 years without firing a shot. They have spent their entire existence fighting themselves, Bethel continued. Not occasionally, constantly. They have never known peace. Not true peace. They have only known the absence of total war, which they maintain through the promise of mutual destruction. The chamber was silent now. Even the beings who communicated through color shifts and chemical signals had stopped moving. During my observation, a Kreth raiding party attacked their world. You all know the Kreth. You know what they do to primitive species. You know that surrender is the only logical response to their superior force. Vethel displayed the battle footage. The 50 Kreth warriors landing. The single human with a white flag. The 47 seconds of violence that followed. The humans did not surrender. They did not negotiate. They destroyed the Kreth landing party in less than 1 minute. Then they destroyed all 3 Kreth ships. They used weapons they had built in secret, hidden across their world, waiting for an enemy that might never come. He let the footage end on the image of the fleeing Kreth vessel exploding into light. They were prepared. Not for the Kreth specifically. For anyone. For anything. They have been preparing for war since before they could write words. And they will continue preparing for war until their species ends. The speaker leaned forward. Your classification, observer. Vethel took a breath. What he was about to say would change everything. Do not conquer them. Do not threaten them. Do not give them any reason to see you as an enemy. And if we wish alliance, then pray they accept. Because I have studied predators across this galaxy. I have looked into the eyes of species that exist only to kill. None of them frightened me. Vethal paused. The next words were harder than any he had ever spoken. Humans frighten me, not because they are cruel or evil or mindlessly aggressive, but because they are kind. They love their families. They create beautiful art. They dream of peace. And they choose violence anyway. He displayed images of human children playing in parks. Human families sharing meals. Human artists painting and singing and dancing. They have every capacity for peace. They want peace. They build religions and philosophies around the idea of peace. And yet they never stop preparing for war. They teach their children to fight. They invent new ways to kill. They look at the stars and wonder what threats might be waiting. Vethel turned to face the assembled species directly. I am Silian. My people removed fear from our biology 10,000 years ago. We considered it a weakness, an obstacle to rational thought. I have never felt fear in my entire existence. He let the silence stretch. I felt genuine fear for the first time standing with humans. And I believe that fear is the most rational response to what they are. They are not the most powerful species. They are not the most advanced. But they may be the most dangerous. because they have been practicing violence against themselves for their entire history, and they have become very, very good at it. The council speaker considered this for a long moment. Your recommendation for classification? Apex cooperative species. Approach with extreme caution. Potential allies if treated with respect. Potential extinction level threat if provoked. The vote was held. The classification was approved. 2 months later, Bethel returned to Earth as the permanent council liaison. Ambassador Yoon met him at the spaceport with a warm smile. "Welcome back," the ambassador said. Tea, Bethel accepted. He had learned that humans offered tea to friends. He had also learned that humans protected their friends with the same ferocity they used to destroy their enemies. They walked together through a garden near the spaceport. Human children played on the grass while their parents watched both them and the sky. Always watching the sky. Always ready for the threat that might come tomorrow or might never come at all. "Your council accepted our membership application." Yoon said, double quotes, "yes, with conditions." "I know. We've read the report." They sat on a bench and watched the children play. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It was beautiful, peaceful, perfect. And somewhere on this world, Bethel knew, soldiers were training. Scientists were building new weapons. Leaders were making plans for wars that might never happen, just in case. "Observer Bethel," the ambassador said quietly. "Are you still afraid of us?" Bethel considered the question carefully. He watched a small girl chase her brother across the grass, both of them laughing. He thought about the border where nations stared at each other across a line in the dirt. He remembered the calm efficiency with which humans had destroyed the Kreth. "Yes," he said finally. "I believe I will always be afraid of humans." "I believe I will always be afraid of humans." Yoon nodded slowly. He did not seem offended. "Good," he said. "That fear might keep you safe." The sun finished setting. The children were called inside. The stars appeared, one by one, filling the sky with light. Somewhere up there, the galaxy continued its ancient dance. Species rose and fell. Empires were built and destroyed. Wars were fought over resources and territory and ideas. And on one small blue world, a frightened species looked up at those stars and wondered what was out there. They were afraid. They had always been afraid, but they were ready. They had been ready for 10,000 years, and now the galaxy would learn what that meant. Bethel sipped his tea and watched the stars appear. He was afraid. Genuinely, truly afraid for the first time in his long existence. He was also grateful, because whatever came next, he would rather stand with the humans than against them. The universe had never seen a species like humanity. And Bethel had a feeling it never would again.